And welcome back. It's just me and Sterlz. That's all this is. We have yet to name what the fuck we're making, so you're in here for the ride and still stay tuned. I'm Johnny Kernian. Get at me, because my name is my name.
It's your boy, Young Sterlz, aka Mike Lowry, aka Mr. Buckets, aka Mr. Pulled It For No Reason. And you know, we in here.
Ooh, we got a new nickname in the building.
That's what I'm saying,
What's this?
bro.
Oh.
I stole it from a song, I'm not gonna lie. He didn't say it was a nickname, but I was like, that's a fire line. You pulled it for no reason. I'll be doing that sometimes, so you know.
Yeah, no, I've seen you do that in public.
It's just unfortunate that America's in the state it's in. Cause I feel like it could be so much better. Especially, I mean, it's just the way that our government is set up and the way money works. Like, we are literally just creating money out of thin air.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we're gonna do that, at least like put it towards some good. Like, instead of like, I mean, we literally like the military industrial complex runs this whole country. Like, and and honestly, that's the one thing that went over people's head. Is one time Trump actually said that, and like nobody paid attention to that. But like he literally said, like, yeah, they want war.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, that's like the one thing that Trump said that was good.
Yeah.
Like it just went over everybody's head. Like nobody, because he be saying all this crazy shit. Like it's like, oh shit, like he actually put people on some game, but nobody actually picked up on it.
And it's crazy because like his actions as a president has shown not that. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's decked out like so many military contracts, which is proven to me, like, if there's one thing that I do appreciate Trump for, is that I do know without a shadow of a doubt Trump was his own man. Like, I know we talk about Russian interference and all this other shit, but I feel like Russian interfered in the sense that like America was about to shoot themselves in the foot with this dumbass like candidate who had no previous experience being a politician, and they were like, hey, yeah, let's choose him over Hillary Clinton. Like, Hillary Clinton fucking hates us. Like, this is not in our interest. But because I believe that Trump is his own man, Russian interference aside, I do know without a shadow of a doubt, once you get into that office position, the shit that you believe isn't the shit that you do. And like, this is a great example of that. Like, the amount of military contracts and the amount of military spending that has gone on in the Trump administration has been a severe boost up. Even though we've kicked ourselves out of the Middle East essentially by completely escaping Syria and creating a vacuum of power. So we should be spending less money in that aspect because we have one less war. But then it doesn't make sense because our spending keeps going up, and they keep going up to these fucking bullshit contractors that fuel the military industrial complex. Like, you look at Boeing. Boeing is a great example of that. You go back to March 27th, whenever the stock market crashed. Like, these were the people who got hit the most, the Lockheed Martins of the world, right? All of these people essentially get their money funneled to them by the government, and it's usually politicians that are just giving them these huge military contracts. And Trump even acknowledged this, like you mentioned from before, in 2016. And he actually not only had to make sure that that train kept rolling in terms of funneling the money, he had to double down on that because he's a fucking Republican, even though he doesn't personally probably believe in that. Like, and so that shit is just wild. Like, that's what the presidency does. Like, I guess there's just decisions that are really out of your control.
People don't want to realize that just because how comfortable we are here. Like, a lot of things, I feel like a lot of things gets passed over our heads. Like, the morals and the ethics of people, like, everybody tries to be very, like, ethically and moral, like when you talk to them and just like the way they move. But it's like, if you really think about it, like, to live in America, you gotta like ignore a lot of shit, like child labor, like the phone that you got, like all this comfortability, it comes at a price. Like motherfuckers in third world countries is struggling so we can have this life right now, and it's like damn, like you gotta, I don't know, like
I think it's really difficult to teach an American that until you take them out of the country and you bring them to a developing country, or you take them to some place where their products or their services that they use are actually manufactured and they see the manual child labor that goes in, they see the poverty firsthand, they see that there's plenty of countries that don't have internet or consistent electricity or clean water or clean air 24/7. And the things that we get to just take for granted in this country, the majority of people don't get to even enjoy. And furthermore, their pain is what brings us our luxuries, our rights. Like literally their pain, like that Chinese, Vietnamese or like Taiwanese kid who's having to fucking work like a slave to, either make that phone or that Adidas shoe is like fucking nothing to you. You just wanted your 5th pair of like Yeezys, you know what I mean? And it's just like, we always talk about wealth inequality in America, but just like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's like a standard of living inequality between us and the rest of the world is, growing more and more every day. And we're actively creating policies to say fuck the rest of the world when we've already fucked the world enough. Like, to the point where I would argue we're going to be in a better off place if we actually just try to take care of the shittier places in the world, because then they will indirectly make our lives better, because we're already connected. Like, I do realize that people speak about this whole thing about Obama failed in terms of us trying to drive us into too hyper globalist of a society, and neoliberalism is bad, and it's essentially neo-colonialism in a sense. And those conversations can be had, but those are all like smart and nuanced and are still framed in the context of very simple ideas that we should not be xenophobic, like we should not be isolationist, like we should not start wars with other countries by using tariffs and trades, because that might affect other partners around you. You know what I mean? I think those common 3 things used to be understood, at least amongst, I feel like, the world a couple of years ago. But now, because of the recent politicians that have shown up, not just Trump, but the Boris Johnsons of the world, right? If you look at even Duarte and, even Bolsonaro in Brazil, like, even the politicians that have been recently showing up in like Eastern Europe too, and the horrible situation that's happening in Belarus, like, these are great examples of people that have kind of tried to point to neoliberalism being bad and then use it as an excuse to just go on authoritarian fucking binges. Oh, and China. I fucking forgot about China. It's like one of the biggest.
I was about to say,
like,
as Americans, we try to have this like everybody's equal, all this type of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just all about capitalism. Like, when it comes to that money, people lose their morals real quick. And it's unfortunate.
But that's the thing that I kind of want to push back against, because I think we now live in a society where we can see that hyper-capitalism. Like, we currently live in a society that's too capitalistic, I believe. But I hate that everybody our age is like, capitalism is the problem. Like, I see like a lot of people who are like really big into like Bernie Sanders are just, and not even just people who are into Bernie Sanders. I think that there is this millennial Gen Z love fest going on with the idea of communism, and that we can kind of use these issues of racism and wealth inequality and classism and just kind of just wrap that under capitalism being the problem. And actually, capitalism is not the problem. If anything, capitalism has helped us become a great country. Like, I feel like a morally better country too, as well. Like, I do think that there is some form of capitalism that leads to us actually being morally better people, because there is some point where only self-interest can take you so far in the world of capitalism. Eventually, at some point in time, you have to start partnering with other people in a collaborative sense. Whether if it's out of like selfish reasons or not, you have to collaborate with other people to actually grow your profits, like in a capitalistic sense. So like, I think capitalism is good. I want to say that capitalism is good. I believe that, which is, it's crazy. We live in a society where people don't think capitalism is good. But with that being said, I do believe we live in too hyper of a capitalist society. We live in a hyper-capitalist society, and there's things that we need to do to reform what we do with the money after we reach these crazy profits through, you know, regulations or whatever that need to happen, like on a government side or even a private sector side, that will actually allow us to be better at capitalism. Like, I think what's happening is we're succeeding in capitalism in the sense that, like, you know, the stock market's doing great. We've never been able to generate the amount of revenue and profits that we have, like, ever, and that's always going to keep continuing. But I'm saying, yes, we're doing the best we've ever done before, but we could be doing way, way better than we are right now if we chose to reallocate those profits and those revenues that we're making into more useful things for society, as opposed to the things that will show up on our stat sheet of doing well on capitalism, right? Like, GDP is a great example of this. Like, people are obsessed, like, with, oh, this country is successful because of their GDP, right? Like, China right now, even though the coronavirus has happened, they're on track to have 5% GDP growth this year, and they're going to be the only country to do so. Whereas other economies have shrunk. You look at the UK right now, their economy has shrunk about 26 to 32% this year. That's a damn near a third of their economy has shrunk, right? And if you look at those, like, the juxtaposition of that, you can't say that China objectively lives in a better society than the UK. Like, you look at what's happening with Uyghur, the Hong Kong situation, living in a technocrat surveillance state. You can't tell me that's a better way of life than possibly living in the UK. Like, even though they're technically doing better in capitalism. So, like, what is the difference that makes me say that the UK could be a possibly healthier place to live at than China? I think it's the rights and the benefits and what people choose to do with the profits and the revenue created by the government and their private sectors, such that they're reinvesting it back into their citizens. And I feel like if we can actually start to change the narrative where, you know, we still agree that capitalism is good, but that the goal of our capitalism should be to reinvest in our new stakeholder, which is our citizens, then we'll live in a good society. But that doesn't mean, you know, that we should tear down capitalism. And it doesn't mean that we live in communism if we choose to take the profits and the revenue of our governments and private sector and put it back in the power of the US citizen, whether it's through a form of universal basic income, even negative interest rates, tax refunds. Like, there's a billion ways you could go about doing that. But I think if we can actually start to think of capitalism as this tool with the goal of reinvesting in people, then we'll be in a better off position. Because right now, things have never been better for capitalism, right? But GDP, you know, margins, all of these metrics that we make are in the name of just generating a big ass number on a piece of paper, and they don't really translate to the betterment of human lives. And if we can get back in the conversation of that, we end up becoming the world's greatest power once again. Because we're not right now. It's like us in China.
Well, I don't want to get anything twisted. Trust me, I believe in capitalism. I'm all about it. I mean, I'm getting an MBA in marketing. I mean, I'm all about getting the consumer. But I'm just saying it's just driven. It just drives people ethics. I think, like, people got to understand that. Yeah. And that, like, you can't really have it both ways at the end of the day. Like, you got to choose what you want in life, basically. Like, are you gonna, like, I guess just as Americans, we have been put in this situation where we really got to think about it, because, like, we do got a better life than most people in the world. Like, I wouldn't want to be born in any other country than America.
Absolutely.
Like, for all, like, people, that's the one thing that I always hate. Like, people always complain about America, but it's like, do you really want to be anywhere else? Like, I don't. I know that, but all the racial tension, all that shit, I'm still happy as hell to be here.
No doubt.
I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah. And these would be the same motherfuckers who would be complaining and not voting. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, this shit is crazy. And to add on to your point, like, yeah, you can't have it both ways. And the biggest thing for me is we have to stop thinking that we're morally or ethically better than everybody else in the world. Like, because I think most Americans legitimately believe that. They're like, morally and ethically, like, we represent democracy and, like, freedom of speech, and, like, we're fucking, like, this is the place where you go and be free. and we do it the moral way and the right way. And that's not true. There is a price to every single right and freedom that we take for granted in this country every single day. So we need to understand that we live in a state of privilege by just being American citizens. So it's not up for us to come in and like wag the finger at everybody else, you know, in the world, saying like they're fucking it up. Because I swear to God, if I was to take you and pull you out of wherever you're listening to this podcast at, or if I just drop you into the middle of like the fucking Philippines right now, like, listen, you're probably going to do a lot more morally ambiguous shit to survive than you necessarily would here in the US. Because like I said from before, the things that you take for granted right now, like clean air, clean water, food, shelter, running electricity, those all go away suddenly. And so because we live in a world of privilege, we have to understand that it's not our responsibility to try to force our rights and morals and the ways that we see the world onto everybody else, because we can't speak on behalf of those other people and what they go through and the journeys they live.
Well, just on that point, that's why I don't understand how people don't get stuff that happens in America, like crime and stuff in impoverished areas. Like, people going, at the end of the day, people going to do what they got to do to survive. Like, nobody's just going to just let themselves die. So, like, some people going to have to steal. They're going to have to do, like, because that's the only way that they can see in their mind, like, this is the only way I can make it. This is the only way I can live. Because like, we're humans. At the end of the day, we are still animalistic. Like, we're just looking for a way to survive. Like, we need food, we need shelter, we need water. We need to be able to take care of our bodies so we can keep living.
Definitely.
So like, if you take all those resources away from people, of course they're gonna have to go to things like violence and crime and stuff in order to survive. And it's not like that's just like their nature, because I feel like a lot of people just think like, oh, that's just what they do. Like, I feel like that's like the racists, they use that the race card, like, yeah, that's just how they are. Like, it's like, no, you took all the resources from them, so now they have nothing. So that's the only way that they can survive. That's the only way they know to survive, especially without education. Like, that's the reason why I pointed that out at the beginning. Education in America is so fucked up. Like, if that was fixed, I feel like so many other problems would be fixed. Like, education is just so important to like just for people to understand things.
Facts. To understand facts. Like, we live in a world right now where people don't believe in science, and it's because we've had multiple generations of bad American education. Like, to the point that people don't want to believe in facts anymore. You know what I mean? That climate change is real. Like, you know what I mean? That the earth is not flat. You know what I mean? The fact that coronavirus is not a hoax. Because there's even my girlfriend was fucking telling me that there's people that she knows, that she follows in like Houston and stuff, like, that just still don't believe that you should wear a mask, that don't believe that coronavirus is real. Like, there's still these people who still exist, and it's, you know, it's just troubling that we have a growing population, I feel, of people that want to believe more in conspiracy theories than they do the facts. Like, I've noticed that people now are more willing to go do research and find multiple sources and links on a conspiracy theory that justifies a narrative in their head more than they are about actually reading up on the science behind a fact that might disagree with that conspiracy theory. And that's just weird to me, because like, usually if I'm presented either a conspiracy theory and about a scientific fact, and the first thing I'm gonna do is check scientific fact.
Well, I got this theory. You can tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I feel like the people who believe in like conspiracy theories, it's like their way of thinking like there's more to the world than there actually is. Because if you think, like, in my opinion, the world it's pretty simple. Life is pretty simple, okay? Like, regardless if you like a religious person or whatever, you live and you die, and like, what you do at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, if you're not like religious or anything.
You are pretty insignificant unless like you are one of these great figures in life. Like, you're not really gonna live on a history, and like I feel like those people have kind of figured out like, but they don't want to believe that like life, like you just kind of just live and die. Like what you do, just like it just goes on. Like yeah, your memory might live on in your kids and stuff. But, like that's pretty much it. Like it's pretty simple. Like what it is, what you make it at the end of the day. And I think they want to like push all this narratives like, oh yeah, there's people running the government, like there's this
Illuminati.
The Illuminati and all that stuff, like, because that makes life more interesting to them. It's like, yeah, there's got to be something else going on that I don't know about that just makes everything, like, this is the reason for all the problems in the world, like, all this stuff. It's like, nah, like, that's just how it is. Like, that's just what happened. Like, people just do dumb shit and, like, stuff happens. I get
absolutely.
But that's just my theory about, like, why people get in behind conspiracy theories, because, like, they just want something else to believe in other than like I live and I die basically at the end of the day.